Hello, and thank you for joining us today from wherever in the world you're joining from. I've been dutifully informed by Daniel that we have Berlin covered, we have Chicago covered.
Devon and LA.
Devon, just as important.
And many more. If you haven't said where you're tuning in from yet, please jump into the live chat and do that now.
Great. So I want to start by thanking you for joining us today, especially if you're here for take 2 and you tried to join us last week when unfortunately Edinburgh literally was too hot. We're not used to that. Great, yeah, so today's session is on kind of your development and your journey of you and your show Beyond the Fringe, which is helpful because that's the title that's on the screen. This is important because a lot of these sessions so far, we've been focusing very much on your show and getting your show right and how your show is looking, where actually the Fringe is a great time to invest in yourself and your career and how that's going. So we're very much focusing on the individual today as well as your show and your life for that Beyond the Fringe. I guess it's the best thing to do is to introduce ourselves at the start. So Daniel, if you can bring us back to the room. Hi, my name's Alan. I'm the registration manager here at the Fringe Society, so I manage the registration process, and I also, with Daniel, look after events such as these.
My name is Katie. I'm the artist development manager, and I'm not going to go into my role right now because we'll be covering a lot of that down the line in this Fringecast.
Thank you for dressing to match.
Yeah.
Always.
And matching with the logo behind you.
We're very on brand.
Yeah, you are.
Always, yeah.
I'm Amy Saunders and I am the Arts Industry and Marketplace Manager, and I work with the industry that come into town and we help connect industry with artists.
And I'm Daniel, and I'm the Digital Marketing Coordinator here at the Fringe Society. So I do social media, email marketing, and I sit with Alan to his left side doing all the tech for these Fringecasts, and had quite a rough session last week when we stopped broadcasting halfway through because it got very warm in Edinburgh.
We were on such a roll as well.
I know.
We powered through those.
There was some content there that no one will ever hear.
Oh, wow.
Excellent.
And for quite a while we were just talking and we had no idea if anyone could hear us. So if you suddenly lose sound or something stops working, do let us know in the live chat to save us a 5-minute period of just talking to no one.
Yeah.
To each other.
To
We
each
had a
other.
nice
Yeah.
chat.
We learned a lot about each other and what we do.
Yeah.
But genuinely, whether this is your first Fringecast or your, 14th?
We've done 37 of them now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies. Genuinely, these work best when you interact with us. It's already nice to see where people are coming from in the world, but genuinely, these are for participants and artists to support you and answer the questions that you have. So we definitely want to hear from you. So do get in touch. I almost said don't get in touch. Please don't get in touch.
So
we would just like to talk.
Please.
There's a good group of you watching this live, but we are aware that a large number of people maybe can't make it to the live broadcast and catch up with us later. So as we broadcast these live and sort of unscripted, we record them as we go. So thanks for tuning back. Obviously, if we... Yes, Katie?
Just on that, sorry, if you are watching, not live, if you're watching a recording of this and you do have questions that you can't submit live, you can email them to us. And the email address for that is artistadvice@edfringe.com.
Yes, which I then have to type in the chat, but I haven't finished. I have to finish. I can't type and talk at the same time. So they go in the live chat. So I will put that email address in the live chat along with any links to web pages or events that the guys talk about during the session. And if you're listening back, that live chat updates in real time. So right now, you'll probably only see things that have been said in the first 3 to 5 minutes of the session. But as we move on, more things will appear magically as if you were listening to the session live. So it's recorded.
Basically means people have to listen all the way through.
You have to listen all the way through. We do this live, it's recorded, it's on the same page. You can refresh it, come back later. So don't feel like you have to rewind it or pause it. Stay with us live, throw questions our way, like Alan said, and I will throw them to the group as and when they come in. But I will now type artistadvice@edfringe.com in the live chat.
Also, just another point: if you're listening live, or you're listening whenever, you can share this. Like, this will be a link that people can use. So actually, if you meet someone and they're like, I don't know anything about what I'm going to do beyond the Fringe, like, let people know this is a resource. Like, share it around the network. We basically just want as many people as possible to be able to reach us. So do absolutely share and get involved.
And if you're a producer or somebody that has a lot of creatives in your show that maybe didn't get the link to this live cast, but maybe want to look it up afterwards,
Absolutely.
share it with the actors and the technicians and anyone else that's involved in your show that maybe didn't know this was going on.
Yeah.
And while we'll be throwing questions as we go, we got loads of questions in advance. So we've thrown them all on screen right now. And we hope over the course of the next hour or so, we'll cover all of these, including the one in the top right-hand corner that simply says more knowledge. Hopefully, if we can't at least give you one piece of more knowledge, we haven't done our job.
Yeah, so most of these, you'll see Katie's about to go through the timeline of what we're going to talk about today. And it'll be really useful for you to see if there's a specific point where your question will be most relevant. If you ask a question and Daniel doesn't ask it straight away, it's not that we're ignoring you, it's probably that we're just waiting for the best time to sort of slip that into the chat and discussion so it stays lovely and organic.
And I meant to say, if you're watching this on desktop, the live chat is in the top right-hand corner. Should be fairly plain to see, but if you're on a mobile device, there's a button that says live chat, which may be turned off. So we do recommend tapping that to see what's been said so far, and that's also how you can type in messages, but only if you're watching live, hence live chat.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. So,
all right.
Katie, over to you. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, first of all, we're going to introduce the individual services that we offer to artists and how we can help you in your journey to the Fringe and your time here, and then your professional development here and beyond the Fringe. We'll talk about your timeline and what you can start now, what you should be doing in advance of coming to the Fringe, and what you can do while you're here. As I said, things you can start now is the next point there. We'll also talk about how to focus your efforts. Essentially, this means how to network with the industry and how to talk to people that you want to get into your show, how you communicate with them. The next is, what kind of material should you send them? And if you want to send them a tour pack, what kind of information you should have available in that tour pack. We'll also cover Fringe Central events. I'm sure from previous Fringe casts, if you've tuned into them, you'll already know a little bit about the Fringe Central programme, or maybe a lot about the Fringe Central programme, but we'll identify certain areas of that will be really useful for your time here. And also just Fringe Central as a whole is really good to know about.
She'll be too modest to say, but Katie is basically the mastermind of that programme, so if you have any questions, now is the best person to ask.
The first time Alan has ever called me modest.
I don't know.
Hold on a second, I'll pop on, there you go. We have copies all over the room.
If anyone hasn't picked up one of these yet, please do let us know and we can send you the online version of it. It will have been sent in the post to the primary show contact for every registered show, but if you don't have a copy of that...
I can share a link to it right now.
Oh, there we go. It's in the show notes or the live chat. Here we go. Too many podcasts for me.
And I say I'm going to do it right now. I'm not, because I have to talk again, so I can't type. If I jump back to the slide deck, we're going to use this opportunity to do a wee bit of a plug for previous episodes of Fringecast.
So not like us.
This is the first time you've tuned in. So today we're obviously focusing on taking a show beyond the Fringe and touring and networking. But we've covered a range of topics, like you can see on screen, ranging from obviously finding a venue, which you can still do now, but that's sort of aimed at earlier in the year. But right now, you can still catch up with marketing, accessibility, social media, and how to reach reviewers and the media. And after I share the Fringe Central events program in the live chat, I'll also share the ways you can catch up with these episodes, because like this one, they've all been recorded. You can catch up with them at your leisure, but not right now. Please stay with us live and then catch up at a later date.
Yeah, and that's not just a shameless plug. It's also because if you've got questions about those kind of topics, you're probably best either emailing us or going back to check those, just because we've got a limited time and this is a very big topic we're talking about today. So we're going to focus very much on industry, development, and sort of life beyond the Fringe. So we've talked a lot about we. We should probably say who we are in case you're a first-time listener. We are the Edinburgh Festival Fringe Society, or representation from it.
It's not just the four of us.
Yeah, no, just the four of us. We're all very tired. We are quite tired. So the Fringe Society is the charity that underpins the Fringe. We definitely don't program it. We don't manage it as such. What we do is we support the Fringe. We've got a marketing team that markets the Fringe as a whole to Edinburgh, Scotland, and the world. And then we have our participant services team who are here to support artists. We're basically here for you to make sure that you get the most out of your experience. And we also look after, like Amy will talk about this, but we look after the Fringe for the people who use it as a marketplace, as well as media who come to, find the next big thing to write about. So I guess this feels like a really appropriate moment for you guys to talk. People can't see where I'm looking. Katie and Amy. It feels like a really good time for you guys to talk about your roles and sort of the services that sit within your offices.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm the Artist Development Manager and I oversee the Artist Development Service. A lot of that is the Fringe Central Events Programme, which is us identifying opportunities for development, professional and creative development for artists during their time here at the Fringe. But one of the biggest things that we do as part of the service is we help the artists identify their professional development goals in coming to the Fringe. One of the biggest ones in that is probably onward touring, and so one of the methods that we help to get people to an onward tour after the Fringe is identifying what your show is about, what your goals are, where you'd like to tour, who you'd like to speak to, and we then engage with Amy's team, and she'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while, about getting you the right people and matchmaking you with the right industries. So we help artists identify their goals and then we help them to build strategies to achieve those. And yeah, a lot of that works alongside Amy's team who take care of the industry. So Amy, probably good to chat about that.
Sure, thank you, Katie. So as Katie's mentioned, I manage the arts industry team. And it is a very active marketplace, the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, as most of you will probably know. So we accredit around about 1,400 promoters and programmers and venue managers and festival directors and talent scouts and TV and radio and film industry professionals every year. And they're all here very much actively looking for, as Alan mentioned, the next best thing or big thing.
The next best thing.
They're looking for really good quality shows to take back to their venues or their festivals. They're also here looking at actually engaging with individuals, emerging talent. Often there's a strong group of UK programmers from across the board in terms of small scale, medium scale and large scale programmers, rural touring, pretty much you name it and we get it through our office. So we accredit them. Most of you will have identified when you registered your shows that you have allocated. Normally it's 2 tickets per performance to industry. So we help identify who those people are and who is actually eligible for getting complimentary ticketing, and then we help field them basically to your shows. A lot of the service that our team provide is helping those promoters and programmers find the right shows that match their programming remit. Because the program is so vast with over 4,000 shows this year, it's quite hard and challenging sometimes for programmers that are coming in for 3 to 5 or 7 days and they've got a short period of time and want to see as much work as they can, and they don't want to be wasting time seeing shows that don't match their programming remit. So we help kind of guide them to make sure they're going to the right shows. We work closely with Katie's team to help match the artists with those programmers.
Yeah.
We put on a number of events throughout the month where we hope to bring artists and programmers together and create an environment where it feels like there's some formal and informal networking happening. So if the 2 Sundays in the month, hopefully we will see you at our networking events on the 11th and the 18th. But our job really is to help matchmake the industry professionals that are here with the talent yourselves that are here, and make it as effective as possible for those programmers that are looking for work.
Great.
So now we have a message from, I sat down, I was going to say today, it was definitely last week, with Shona, who's our chief exec, and she was talking about kind of the Fringe as a marketplace, and kind of how important that is and how important it is to keep your mind in it. So I think, Daniel, you have that queued up. Was that enough of a run-in?
That was enough of a warning, yeah.
Nice.
Here we go.
Take it away, Shona.
Oh, it's my favourite subject. I suppose, and I guess it's one of the points that we collectively make to performers and artists who are thinking about coming here is to really know what you want from it, because it can be such an extraordinary investment, an investment in your professional development, an investment in your show, an investment in the potential legacy of your show. So I think for me, sometimes when you associate those two words, arts and marketplace, it can seem like a dirty combination for people or something. But actually, this festival is really about doing business as much as it is about being a showcase. And I think for those people who are really serious about bringing a piece of work here that they want to have seen and exposed to international curators, programmers, people who are here looking to select and tour work, there's no other place on the planet like it.
I love hearing Shona talk about that. I just really like the sort of passion she talks about it. We're about to go into our next discussion, which is about Fringe Central. I guess I just want to say something before we get started, just a bit of a reality check to people of real terms of how important this is. I think people have a focus when they first want to bring a show or they first register. Your worry is getting bums on seats and then getting reviews because you think that helps with bums on seats. Mm-hmm. So lots of people are like, I need to be sending my press release. And I was the same, when I was a participant, I was the same. And then it hit the first week of August and I was like, oh, I really like this show that I have. And suddenly I was like, I'm now starting from square one with, which again, if you're listening to this late, it's not too late. Talk to the artist advice team that Katie was talking about. But genuinely, this is something that's as important as your media and marketing campaign because you want to hit the ground running. So as if you've got a really great show and you've got something that is important and you want people to see, you don't want it to slip under the radar. You want to be on the radar.
I totally agree. And with that thing about it not being too late is, the reason we do this Fringe Cast at this time is that actually you have been focusing on your marketing campaign. You have been focusing on your social media. You have been focusing on getting your show here and getting it polished and getting it right and getting everything ready. Now is the time to start focusing on what's next. Don't start focusing on what's next when you're here in August because that is too late. But starting to focus on it now, starting to get your objectives and your priorities in order and starting to build strategies, methods and plans for how to achieve those objectives that's what's ready. Time is now for that. And having done your marketing campaign, having listened to those Fringe Casts and having gotten to that stage where you're comfortable with that, now is the time to move beyond that and start thinking about what next.
And particularly if you're planning on reaching out to us for help and advice, we obviously it's always busy at this time of year, but it's even busier in August. So we have more time to sort of unpick what you're looking to do. Whereas in August we can help, but there are so many people coming to us at that time. It means you get slightly less time with us.
I would say also what's important, and hopefully it's starting to become obvious if you've listened to quite a few Fringe Casts, is these different topics don't really sit in isolation. Mm-hmm. So if you've done your marketing campaign right, you know how to sell your show, which actually means when you get into a room with someone who may want to take your show further on, you know how to pitch it, and it suddenly makes you seem like this person knows what they're doing. Yeah,
for sure. If you've polished that elevator pitch, and if you've got your, that elevator pitch will lead to your industry pitch, your press release will lead to your tour pack and your email inviting the industry. They all connect. So if you've done your preparation and your marketing at this stage, you'll have some preparation done in advance for your industry activity.
And I think we'd all say we've spoken to people and you know if they've done that.
Oh God, yeah.
You know within the first minute of talking to them, you're like, oh, this person knows the deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So we're talking about where all this happens, and actually Fringe Central is pretty much the hub of this kind of activity around, whether it be at an event or whether just people there. If you don't know what it is, Fringe Central is basically meant to be your home away from home during the Fringe. It's a hub for performers, and that can kind of mean almost anything you want it to mean, whether it's like sitting down grabbing a coffee or actually using more of the services. So Katie, do you want to talk about what some of those services
so I guess I'll just start out with the general services that are provided within Fringe Central. Obviously, it's a place for you to come and relax between shows. There's couches, beanbags, tables, spaces to work, spaces to relax. There's a cafe. But there's also, wireless and computer facilities, and there's printing, and, there's even guillotines for you to snip up some kind of, if you get some reviews and you want to staple them, we've loads of staplers.
Sorry, Sorry, we're laughing a little because we talked a lot about guillotines.
Well, earlier today, someone tweeted us saying, "Hi guys, do you have a guillotine?" And then that was it. So we asked them,
we didn't know which
what do you have in
kind.
mind? And it's like paper, like good, just check it.
Yeah. So on top of that, we also all of our artist-facing teams reside in Fringe Central during August. So we all moved there at the end of July and set up our offices there. So we have our arts industry team is there, the artist development service, our participants team is there. We have the media team, and they're all of the services that if you as an artist or a performer or a producer or someone in the media or the arts industry needs assistance, advice, facilities, services, anything, that's where we all essentially live during August. I have a bed under my desk. And so, that's where you come for advice on absolutely anything about your time at the Fringe. In addition to that, it's also where we run the events program for Fringe Central. So the events program, and I think we're seamlessly going to the next slide, is the one that we held up and shook at the camera a moment ago, and Daniel has put the link to that in the comments below. The Fringe Central Events Programme is a programme of over 100 professional development events, be it workshops or discussions, debates, networking events. We have something for everyone in there, and it's really well thought out. It's a curated programme. It tries to hit as much as we possibly can. The sections you'll see on the screen, a lot of them are really important for your development beyond the Fringe. I'm going to go through each of them very briefly just to discuss what's within each section. Beyond Edinburgh, it's pretty self-explanatory. Where next? What can you learn in these sessions that will bring you beyond the Fringe? So within that section, we have a lot of the other fringes. So we've Adelaide Fringe, Brighton Fringe, Melbourne Fringe, and we've got World Fringe giving some. They're all giving information about other fringes that you can bring your show to. There's some information in there about different marketplaces around the world, international opportunities, and other opportunities for what to do with your show after the Fringe. The next one is breaking down barriers, and we really focused on getting this section really comprehensively developed this year because we want to ensure that everyone that's coming to the Fringe has a community or a group or a support network that they can rely on and that they can be part of during the Fringe, and we really want to ensure that our access and inclusion is top-notch as much as we possibly can. Building blocks is very much thinking about how to develop you or your practice or career, and if you're retraining or if you're wanting to go back to university or wanting to start out in something completely different, that's a good place to find some activities. Health and well-being. If anyone tuned into the Fringe cast on Tuesday on mental health and well-being at the Fringe, this is a really, really important section and my favourite and I think the best section in the programme. It is full of sessions that are dealing with your well-being at the Fringe, making sure that you're taking time for yourself, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, looking after your own headspace, and just ensuring that you have people around you that are also looking out for you. And please do make sure to get along to stuff in that section. I am particularly excited about the Sanctuary. The Sanctuary runs, I think, 5 times throughout August, and it is very much just a quiet, dark room with beanbags and some 15-minute massages, which are free. So please do get in there and book them as soon as possible. You can only book them on the day. Make the Most of Your Fringe is full of really great things about marketing your show, getting people in to see your show from the industry, from the media. There are a load of networking events in there, and we'll cover some networking stuff later on in this session, but really, really great stuff in there on making the most of your time in Edinburgh and finding your groups and your communities of people that you can get to know and build really great networks with during the Fringe. Taking care of business is the next section. Oh, wait, no, start your sustainable Fringe alphabetically. Is a new section we have this year, very much looking at a group of activities and sessions that are to do with how you can practice being sustainable in, repairing your costumes instead of buying new ones, and ensuring that your time at the Fringe is as green and sustainable as possible. We also, within those sections, have the Fringe swap shop, where you can, at the end of the Fringe, bring your old set and your old costumes and stuff, and also take a lamp if you wish. I have a lamp from last year, which is my favourite thing in my house.
We also have a clown that we will never be rid of.
Clara.
Clara.
And there's a food bag collection as well within that.
Just 2 to go.
And then
Ladybug.
taking care of business, contracts and stuff like that. It's Equity have some really good stuff in there, as do UK Theatre. And then we have Talking Out Your Arts, which is not my pun, but I enjoy it. And that's a series of discussions and debates about some kind of really great topics and stuff that are happening in the art sector at the moment.
And do you know what? That programme is so much about finding what is useful to you.
Oh God, yeah.
Because no one will benefit from every event.
No, and you know, I think that if you can get to 3 events as part of the Fringe Central Events programme, you're doing a really good, you know, you're getting to a lot. And that's where you'll find people to network with. That's where you'll find people from the industry, people from the media, fellow artists. Again, most important people to network with.
And just to be absolutely clear, all those events are free and non-ticketed. So
Totally
it's just first
free.
come, first served.
No, some of them, for the most part, there's about half of them that you can book tickets to in advance, but there will always be tickets available on the door. We've ensured that there's tickets available on the door for every one of those events.
And everyone's welcome, but the artists get the priority?
Yeah,
so if you've got
absolutely. So anyone with an artist lanyard, the official Fringe lanyard, will get priority entry, but they are open to anyone. It's just that as an artist that has paid a registration fee to be here, you get priority access and they're completely free for you to attend.
And how do you get your artist lanyard? These
That-
are just my own questions. They're not in the live chat.
That is also at Fringe Central. So that is probably the first thing that you should do when you get to Edinburgh is come to Fringe Central, say hello to the team, pick up your artist lanyard, pick up your Fringe Central programme. There's also a whole load of participant discounts that are at the back of that programme that are really great, and you
I
use
can share a link to that.
Daniel will share a link to that as well. That is, so you get discounts at the back of that if you have your artist lanyard as well.
I did enjoy Daniel's line of questioning there. I think he's bringing his own show for 2020.
I know, Daniel, conversation
grill
with Daniel.
Yeah, I for one am booking. There's one event that I always like to bring out because I think
Is it yours?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not a shameless plug for me. It's I always get the name wrong. Going Solo Together.
Yes, that is one of the most important events in here.
When I used to do media advice, I sent so many people to that all the time.
Yeah, it's really great.
I'll just grab a link to that.
It's for people who have like a one-person band. So if you are a solo performer who is doing everything all at once,
it's really hard to be that person.
And this is a kind of network meet-up for all those people. So it's actually like some years you go down, you find that people are arranging to like fly in each other's shows to give themselves a break in order to be able to like relax before their show or that kind of thing.
One that's quite similar to Going Solo Together that we've introduced for this year is Fringe First Aid, which is essentially one of the services that we offer in the media advice team and the artist advice team and arts industry and all of the kind of artist facing teams that we have. We offer one-to-one sessions that we give out to people on a kind of first come first serve basis, and you can book an appointment in advance, and that's just very much to talk about your development at the Fringe or help you with your media advice and stuff. But the Fringe First Aid ones are essentially a group surgery where we'll have Fringe Society staff available and an artist or producer that's been there, done that. And it's like just any artist that feels they need to talk something through or get some advice from peers and from Fringe Society staff and from other people that have done it, and just coming to that as a group surgery if you can't get a one-to-one booking, or if you actually would prefer to learn from your fellow peers, is really good.
Because we're great and all, but other artists
They know what they're doing.
They're in the trenches with you. So timeline, we've talked a bit about like you should be doing this and thinking about this, but we're now going to talk a little bit more about like when, like what should people be thinking about and when.
Great. So me again, I'm going to cover the first 2 points in this, and then I'm going to hand over to Amy, who will cover the next 2 points because you're probably sick of my voice. So the first thing to do is get in touch, and that email address that I asked Aniel to put into the comments earlier in the session is artistadvice@edfringe.com.
I'll pop it in again.
Thank you, Daniel.
Quick shout out to Lucy.
Shout out to Lucy, who is probably the main person behind that email address at the moment, and may have already been in touch with some of you guys on the other end of that email address. She's excellent. Get in touch with us and request a prep sheet. A prep sheet is essentially a form that we ask you to fill out, which will help us identify everything we need to know about what you want to get out of the Fringe. We ask you as much as we can find out about your show and about your objectives and about what the kind of through me.
The webcam going up.
So we find out as much as we possibly can about you and about what you're looking to get out of the Fringe and about your goals and objectives. And we ask you what scale you're looking. If you're looking to tour, what scale, where? If you're looking for an agent, what kind of agent? Is it a booking agent, talent, literary? And we find out as much as we can about you, so that then we can take the list that Amy talked about and will continue to talk about in a while, of that massive list of industry members, over 1,000 people, that we use your information to filter down from that 1,000 list to a much more manageable, targeted group of people that are very focused on and looking to program or find the work that you're presenting. The other side of that artist prep sheet is that it gives you somewhere to get all of this down on paper, and it gives you the tools to kind of say, what is it that I want, and why am I here? And it helps you, it informs kind of every decision about your time at the Fringe. It is very, very good in getting your thoughts together for when you're talking to the industry, and if you're emailing or even talking in person to a member of the industry that you really want to attract to your show. You get all of that information, you've written it down, you have it on paper. If they ask you a question that is similar to something that we've asked you on the prep sheet, which most likely they will, then you have the answer to that because you've already filled in the prep sheet. So then that helps us to target an industry list, and Amy is probably going to go further on that.
Industry lists. It's something that we create with all the industry that accredit with us, so we gather the key information about who they are, who they work for, their key contacts, what kind of work they're looking for, what genres they're looking for, and we get a history of what they have booked in the past. So accreditation closes on the 15th of July. We've got about 800 delegates already accredited with us. So you can start contacting Lucy and asking for those lists already. What Lucy will help do with you and us, as Katie said, is hone those lists. The worst thing to do, which we'll talk a bit more about, is to just blanket email all those people. I always say to people, the best thing you can do is walk away with 6 friends rather than annoying 100 people and walk away with no friends. So think really carefully, as we were saying before, about this as part of your preparation time. Use this time to think about what do you want to come out of the Fringe. And not everybody wants onward touring. Some people might just want to hone their craft. Some people might be here for reviews. I'm guessing that because you've all tuned into this session that you are beginning to think about what is next for you, and it is worth taking some time out to really think seriously about that. And if it is onward touring, where do you see your show going? Who are your audience? Is it an English speaking audience? Would it work in the Antipodes? Is it a show you've specifically crafted for a Japanese audience? So think about who the audience is, and then work with Lucy and our teams to look at the industry list, and don't think about quality, not quantity. The industry people get bombarded at this time, like it's been happening for the last month. Their inboxes are full. They are here looking for really good shows. So you're in a really good position. They're here looking for something. You've got something to offer. Think about it like a date. You want to impress these people. You want to be human and real, and you want to offer up your best side. And think about what is your X factor, just like if you're on a date, in terms of there's a lot of shows out there. And maybe you're not going to get a presentation out of it this year, but maybe you'll make a really strong connection with somebody who's happy to have a coffee with you, and you can build on that relationship in time. So I always think it's quite healthy to take the pressure off yourselves a wee bit. And think about it quite holistically, that you're here investing in yourself and your future. Your life doesn't need to change in the next 8 weeks, but you can certainly be making some solid steps towards your future development and professional kind of networking, I think.
I think the point that you made about, coming away with 6 friends rather than annoying 100 people is so important.
Yeah, I'm stealing that one.
You steal everyone's good lines. One of the things that we say to every artist that we give that list to, because, once we email you the list, we will send a variety of tips and advice on how to engage with them and how to email them and what kind of communications they appreciate and find useful. One of the things is really, really, really looking through that list and finding out who within it is useful for you, because yes, we will have done the initial work of filtering down that list from 1,000 to about 100, but not all of those 100 will be applicable to your show. Some of them might fall through the cracks. It's not an exact science. So making sure that you're reading into every single one, find out where they've programmed before, what they're programming, what they're looking for, whose show they've taken on. One of the things actually I find really, really useful is if you know any show that was similar to your show that was here last year, look at who they spoke to, look at where they toured to, if they toured, look at what networks they've made. If you know anyone that has a similar show, get in touch with them through their social media channels. If you don't already know them, find out who they spoke to, find out who is looking at the same work that you're presenting and was here last year. That's always a good kind of rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I'd say the same. So I think the list and the preparation is maybe 30 to 40% of that work at engagement with the industry, and then the rest is on the ground when you're here. And it can happen and does happen a lot in bars. So spend time in the venue bars. You don't have to be drinking all the time. You can have a cup of tea and a bit of time out. I mean, as silly as it is, look at people's lanyards, because industry wear different coloured lanyards to artists. So
you'll learn the lanyard game in August.
Sit down and make conversation with somebody, even if you're queuing up. You just never know who they are, and people are generally in a pretty good frame of mind when they're in Edinburgh. They're enjoying themselves, they're relaxed. Don't be annoying, just be friendly. And also, as Katie said, have a look at what other shows that you think are similar to your own, and go and even meet up with those artists if you want to, and say how are you going with connecting to industry, and they might be quite happy to talk to you about who they're connecting with, and you can share contacts. Be open and honest and generous, and willing to sort of strike up those cold conversations.
I always think that's a really good tip of find the people who were you the year before. I think that when you say, because I think the temptation is to be I love this company who are 5 years down the line, and they're not the ones you should be trying to emulate at the moment.
Yeah, and those are the people that you will see succeeding. The people that were at the Fringe 5 to 10 years ago are the ones that are doing the big national and international tours, and the temptation is to look at them and think, God, I want to be there next year. But they have had they probably had a really difficult first year at the Fringe. They maybe had a difficult second year at the Fringe. Oftentimes it takes 3 years, and you might not make that connection until the third year. You might not get picked up for a tour. You might not make the right network, and it is a long game. It does take time, but following the trajectory of somebody that's a year or two ahead of you is much easier than following somebody that's 5 to 10 years.
So just going back a step, if you're new to arts in particular and trying to get an understanding of it, should we just do a quick introduction of the kind of people we're looking at and what role they can play in your future development?
Great.
So, Amy, I think you covered a lot of this earlier on, but there's a large scope to that, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think actually Katie's team are putting some resources together. If it's quite overwhelming if it is your first time. What is the difference between a producer and a promoter? And an agent. So if you've got any questions about that and you want to hone your own knowledge, get in touch with
we do, yes.
Artist advice, participant advice.
We have a new kind of glossary. What is?
I was going to say glossary.
Glossary for what's the difference between producer, promoter, programmer, agent, etc. So if that's confusing, which it is, even to us sometimes, do get in touch and ask us for that.
Speaking of getting in touch, seamless segue. We've had a question. We've had a lot of questions, and we're going to come to them at the right point. But one felt like it fits its point, and it's from Mimi, who has tuned in quite a few times, who's sort of a regular listener. And was just asking, sort of one organisation has reached out to them and they weren't on her list. And she asked, can filling out the prep sheet help me find more specific contacts? In her case, people interested in medical themed shows.
That is an interesting one. And there are some themes that we do ask the members of the industry to tick as part of their accreditation. And I do believe that health and well-being,
medical, not
so it might be that if you get in touch with us and fill out a prep sheet and give us a little bit more detail, we might be able to, but it's it's not really a very specific field that we would have information on. I'm sorry, that wasn't a very helpful answer, but do get in touch with us, Mimi, and we'll see what we can do.
One thing to remember, actually, which covers that bit and what we were just talking about, is also really use your venues, because your venues have been doing this obviously year on year, some of them for a very long time. they've also got a wealth of knowledge, and they have their own industry contacts, and they may know a presenter who actually has a very a particular interest in medical shows or something.
Sometimes they are. They all exist.
And it's about having those conversations. Like, I'm not as experienced from this side, I'm normally the media side, but it's amazing, like, you just talk to people and then you keep your ear to the ground and suddenly you're like, oh, actually, I thought this was niche, but actually there's 4 other shows that are talking about this. And you start to see that it's like a sort of a theme that's kind of been bubbling away under the surface.
We've got another question as well about sort of arts industry and programmers, and it's from the Middleweight Theatre Company. And they're just interested to know, do arts industry or programmers stay around for the full duration of the festival, or is there kind of a focus period, like the last 2 weeks or in the early stages?
Yeah, very good question. The first week is generally quiet because the shows are bedding in, and industry tend to wait until the 3rd week for word of mouth to get round. Every second year, the British Council have their showcase year, and that does tend to create quite an intense week because they bring in 200 promoters from around the world. So this year, certainly, there is a concentrated period of people that are here kind of in the 3rd and 4th week, and that's quite a normal pattern, as the last 2 weeks are definitely the busier too. First 2 weeks are quieter. And some promoters are here for the whole month, yes, and some are literally here for 2 days. Some are here for a few days, they go away, they come back. But it very much depends, yeah.
I think it's really interesting how that sits with media, because a lot of journalists and things are really busy early doors because they want to get that review early. So it's really interesting to see that actually they mirror.
Yeah, and that's why we always ask people to, every single time you need to make a decision, always ask why it is you're coming to the Fringe. If it is that you're coming to target media, we always kind of say, well, it's a heavier concentration in the first week. But if it's that you're looking to develop your career or your show, the last 2 weeks tend to be slightly more populated with industry. And so that's something that we've always said in all of the Fringe casts we've done, is every single time you need to make a decision about your show at the Fringe, ask yourself why you're coming, because you can't come with too many wide objectives, because it is that your strategies just won't fit together if you have too wide a variety of things you need to achieve.
And another related question, and I'm mindful we've got just under 20 minutes, so we have to be quite quick with our next. Time has flown. It's a related question from Adrian, which I think we can answer fairly quickly. That if an industry person I'm interested in is at the Fringe at dates that don't overlap with mine, is it still worth getting in touch with them?
Absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I would say actually that, and Amy probably has something to say about this too, but you can still build a rapport with this person even if your dates don't overlap, because they might be interested in your show and they might not need to see it, but you can send them material. You can send, if they are interested and they ask for more material, you can send your tour pack, which we'll talk a little bit about, and you can send them information about your show, and they might not see it, but their colleague might be able to go and see it, or someone else they know in town that's going to be there might see it and feed back to them.
And you can send them the reviews, and even if you get audience reviews, if they don't reply to your first email, but you're really interested in them, don't give up on them. Like, write to them again. People are busy, so they won't get back to every email. But if you send staggered emails saying, didn't hear from you last time, but I just wanted to give you an update and share this review with you, we got 4 stars, or and then at the end of the Fringe say, just touching base again, and we had a great season, had a great run, I'd love to, don't give up, but don't be too annoying, I guess.
Time is very much against us. We have another question that I'm going to hold off for now.
This kind of all flows into what the next topic is, though.
Very seamlessly.
Because the next topic is kind of about focusing all these efforts we talked about, which kind of is about like how to kind of take advantage of all the things we're talking, but in the best way, like what your approach should be. And I guess this flows in a lot when we talk about elevator pitches and things, like knowing what your show, so especially what Katie was saying, why you're coming, what you want to get, knowing, I think when you talk to industry as opposed to media, it's even more important to know your goals, because you're talking to someone who, like, they're going to need to know, like, well, are you talking to me to tour your work, or do you just want a conversation? So I think knowing that, but also knowing as much about your show, like you'll hear, we've said elevator pitch so many times, but like understanding the very roots of your show. So as that person you're sitting down with, what is it you're selling to them essentially? Like what is your show?
Yeah. I think we can we've ticked off a lot of the stuff on this slide already, and I think the first one, your audience isn't everyone, is very much going back to that no blanket emailing rule. Narrowing your focus is very much, your show isn't going to be applicable to every size venue or every style venue or every, it's not going to be applicable to a producer and an agent and a programmer. So being very clear on what you want to get from the Fringe and who you want to talk to. Mass emailing, I mean, time and time again, we say, just don't bulk email. But also, it's that thing that Amy just covered on, yes, follow up, absolutely follow up. And this comes down to my favourite, which is flirt, don't stalk. Follow up with people, but don't pester them. Don't constantly harass them. And
it's a fine line, but an
it is a very fine line. But also, if you know that person hasn't got back to you, don't just send them the same email again saying, "Dear Sir, Madam, please come to my show." Send them new information, and this will absolutely have been covered by Daniel and Alan before in the marketing and media Fringe casts. And send new information. Don't send them the same stuff. Send them a new information saying, "My show just got a really great review. Would love to have you along. My show just got 5 stars. Would love to have you along." Just don't constantly bombard them with the same information. And if it is that they get back to you and they say, "I don't have time, I'm really sorry, my schedule is full," people will always have time for a coffee or a drink. You'll always be able to grab somebody for 10 minutes between shows. And one of the best lines in that is asking somebody for advice or asking, can you pick their brains on something? Because what you're doing is you're not selling yourself to them, but you're asking for something different. You're asking for something different from everyone else. And people love to talk about themselves. People love to give advice and give you some information on how they got to where they are. So if you're asking them for something that isn't just buy my show, see my show, come and giving them something that is slightly different, meeting them for a coffee, picking their brains on the kind, maybe, even asking them, if my show isn't right for you, whose venue is it right for? What producer should I target?
And like Amy said at the start, there is no bigger gathering in the world of the industry than the Fringe.
Exactly.
So if you're here, make the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, and using, people that you've spoken to target but to engage with other people, because they all know each other. The industry all know each other, or they'll know somebody that knows the other person. So making sure that you're always, as Amy said, kind and generous and honest, and just not being in any way rude or obnoxious, because your kindness will be spoken about and people will talk about how positive you are, but people will talk even more about you if you're negative, and people will find out if you've been in any way rude to them. So try to be kind and positive.
I'll just add on that, also acknowledging that not everybody feels comfortable approaching people and basically pitching or having a conversation. So have a look at your company or who's with you, and try and get those that are more confident in that space to do more of the networking and save the energy of others for flyering or for keeping their eye on the budget or whatever it might be. But I don't think it's everybody's comfortable space in terms of nurturing those relationships with industry. So think about who in your company is the right person to do that, and share it if you've got a couple of people where it sits happily with, or allocate somebody to be doing that for you, or everybody if everybody's happy to. That's great.
So, leading quite nicely on, what is it we're actually sending to these industry people?
So before we even think about tour packs, which I can breeze very quickly through because I know we are very tight on time, what you need to send them is a few lines on why you're getting in touch with them, showing them that you've done the research, that you know what they're looking for and how your show fits within that. Show them that in some way your show fits their programming remit or what they're looking for at the Fringe. Give them the name of your show, the venue that your show is in.
You'd be amazed how many people don't.
No, honestly, you would. The dates that your show is on, and also make sure on the industry list that we're sending, you'll see what dates those programmers or promoters and industry are in town. If they aren't in town for your show, make sure that you say that you know that and that you've identified that, and say, I know you're not in town during my show, but I wanted to send you this anyway, etc. You can also, if you have it, send them a tour pack. A tour pack, I will very briefly go through, is just maybe 1 or 2 pages of information about your show, with good images, a video clip if you have it, some press clippings of quotes that have been, if you have them, positive about your show. You can also use audience reviews if you need to, just to bulk that up. A description of the piece that is very easy to understand. You could include some information on the company and how the show was made. A tour schedule, knowing when you're available. If you're a student production that wants to tour after the Fringe, you probably won't be available from September to May. So being very clear on your touring availability, examples of promotional material, a press release if you have it, but that's not really necessary, and your contact details. Again, you would be surprised by how many people forget to include contact details in their tour pack. We have templates and samples of tour packs available. So if you don't have one prepared and you want to prepare one, please do send us an email and ask for a template and a sample, and we'll send that over. We can also look at your tour pack and advise as to whether it's kind of up to an industry standard or not. And then Amy's team very kindly lists and hosts all of those tour packs that we receive in the artist development team on the arts industry section of the website. So arts industry can look at your tour pack without having to spend the time, so they can immediately see whether the show is right for them or not, without having to spend the time of getting in touch and asking you for it when you're probably quite busy in August.
Two of the things about tour packs that you've talked about that I always think are interesting, because I was like, oh, I didn't know that was different, is, so like you say include a video. Yeah. Whereas to like media and things, you'd show a trailer.
Right.
Industry
yes.
is very different, isn't it?
Industry tend to not like trailers. They don't tend to like things that are not in the space. They like to see the show in the space for maybe a 3 to 5 minute segment of the piece all the way through, so they can see how it might fit into their venue. Trailers tend to be, my show is in a black box theatre, but we've filmed this trailer at the beach and it's cut with 5 stars from The Guardian and, the best show in the world from my mom, and it's people in the industry. She's excellent. People in the industry tend to like something that they can then use to visualize your show in their space if they're programming, or it looks at the quality of the piece if they're a producer, or looks at the performances if they're an agent, and having that excerpt all the way through from 3 to 5 minutes. I wouldn't bother including a video clip if it's of poor quality, because it just makes you look less professional. Also, tech specs can be quite useful to include in the tour packs, so that people know what they are to expect if they do program you in their venue. I would say with tour packs, never send it as an attachment. It's the same as a press release. You don't want to bulk up that email, because if you're sending that email and it's too bulky, it will end up in a spam folder, or it might not end up in an inbox at all, because inboxes are so full during the Fringe. I would have it on a Dropbox link and send it as a link, or have it as a tab on your website with all of that information linked as for promoters, and just include that as a link in your email. Or just send it if they ask for it.
Finally, talking money, they shouldn't.
Right, yes. I was like,
sorry,
talking money.
I didn't ask you a real question yet. I was just like, talking.
Very quickly,
money?
Generally speaking, people tend to not put the amount of money that their show costs within their tour pack, because then that will limit your ability to negotiate with the venue. I would say have that figure prepared and ready in your head in case you do get into negotiations with the venue or with a member of the industry. But we also have sample and template budgets if you need some help on that. But yeah, I wouldn't include that figure in your tour pack.
Yeah, withhold that for negotiation purposes. I think a lot of this we've covered.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is there anything, so I guess to the room, is there anything that's on this? So we're talking about like on the ground, chatting to people in August. We've covered a lot of it, but I guess like, does anyone have any like top tips for things that you do, Amy?
There's one thing to let you know, that the industry office will be sending your venue every day a list of the comp tickets that we've processed. So just engage with your venue, because if we've been approving tickets on your behalf that you haven't done yourself, then it's good for you to stay in touch with that and to have a look at who's coming to your show. And if you can, you are completely allowed and eligible to ask for their contact details, so you can email them in advance or afterwards, or try and hang around, Google them and try and find a photo of them and meet them after the show, just to shake hands, buy them a drink, ask them for just ask them for feedback. What did you think? How was it? That information is there. It's yours, so use it basically, and work with your venue on fostering those relationships.
I would like to touch on networking events, which we did earlier talk about. But one of the things is the arts industry networking brunches, which are on the 11th and the 18th. That's the second and third Sunday of the Fringe. And Amy mentioned them earlier, but get those dates in your diary. And they're essentially, they're in Fringe Central at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And it's an opportunity for you to attend an event with members of the industry and then network with them in a very casual setting afterwards.
Those ones are listed in the...
They are not.
They're separate from
they're
the
separate
programme.
from the Fringe Central programme. They're first come, first served on the day. But do email us for more information.
So just recap those dates again, and I'll just write them down.
The 11th and the 18th.
And they're actually informatics.
Informatics, which is part of the Fringe Centre programme and just across the road. But if you came to Fringe Centre, we would just direct you
there. Yeah.
A few other key networking events, because one of the things on this same slide is get to know other artists. And these networking events that we have in Fringe Centre are a great place to do exactly that. And I think actually my biggest tip for the Fringe is get to know the other artists, because the other artists are probably the future programmers. They're probably the next best thing in the industry. So getting them to know them at this level as a peer rather than somebody that you're trying to sell your show to is such an invaluable experience, and you're surrounded by artists during the Fringe.
Or your future collaborator.
Exactly. So some of the great networking events that I want to highlight are we have one for parenting in the performing arts, we have an artist of colour meetup, we have a disabled artist meetup, LGBTQ plus mixer, we have a funny women meetup, a working class artist gathering, there's an international new writing symposium, there's Mothers Who Make, and there is a sustainability reception, all of which are in the Fringe Centre programme, and many more.
Because I can't type that quickly.
No, don't type that quickly.
I'm very happy to report that we've got 4 questions we need to cover in the... We're going to run over slightly.
4 for 4.
So shall we go through them before we look at additional dates for your diary?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah,
go for it. Okay, so super succinct answers to the following. First one from Adrian. Is there a link to the tour pack template, or should we email?
Just email artistadvice@edfringe.com.
Great. Another question from Mimi. Should you send a tour pack with your initial cold email, or wait until they respond?
It's up to you. If your tour pack is just a link and you think it's really visually appealing and it's gonna sell your show better than you can in an email, then absolutely include it. I think it's worth including it. If it's just a link and they might click on it, they might not even see it, and then if they ask for it the second time, great, you get to send it twice. I think send it.
Question.
Amy, do you have?
At least it shows you're prepared and thinking ahead.
Yeah. Question
3 from the Middleweight Theatre Company again. Just to clarify, when will the industry contact list be available, or where do we get it if it's already published?
It is available now. It is not published because it is, as Amy and I have said, it's a list of over 1,000 people, and if you got that list, it just wouldn't be useful because there'd be so many people on it that wouldn't be the right fit for your show. So get in touch with us, request an artist prep sheet, fill that in so we know more about your show, we know what you're looking for, and then we can filter that list down. It is available now and it will continue to grow. So it's good to get your first list now and then maybe get a bigger, more extended version
so
of it.
It's personalised to you and now with almost everything.
Personalised to you,
everything
for
today,
everyone.
it's either email artistadvice@fringe.com or look at the Fringe Central events
Basically, and if you can't find the right Fringe Central event for you, email us because we know the Fringe Central programme back to front as well.
Question 4, a more challenging question for which there probably is not an answer.
Let me turn the camera off for this
one. So it's from Melissa. She asked very early on. She's been very patient waiting for the answer. She asked,
thanks for your patience, Melissa.
I've never been to Edinburgh, but it sounds like most shows struggle to find an audience. What percentage of shows do you think tend to successfully use the Fringe as a springboard to touring? I don't imagine there's a precise number.
Amy, you have some good figures on this, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very hard question, Melissa. And a lot of shows that come here aren't here looking for it as a springboard. It might just be a bucket list experience.
Yeah.
So of the shows that come that are looking for, it's how long is a piece of string. But what I could say is that the shows that come here looking for onward touring, that bring their best work, that are prepared, that have a great marketing campaign, that have done their work with the industry lists and work closely with the venues and have a great show, will have opportunities that come out of their time here. It would be very unusual if something positive didn't come out of it. We did a small bit of sampling with the industry at the beginning of this year from last year. So of 68 programmers who came, they booked 368 shows, which was an average of about 6 shows each.
It's amazing.
So, that people really are here looking for work. And if your show is good and you have the right campaign around it, there's no reason why you shouldn't get success.
Just to pull out something that you both said earlier that I think is massively important and maybe like different from things like media is like if you don't necessarily get what you want in your first year, it's not any kind of failure.
No, absolutely
because
not.
actually the Fringe, and I can say this from having done a cumulative years being a participant, that actually you meet someone in year 2 that saw you in year 1, or actually you meet someone like the other end of the year who were in August and heard from someone who heard from you. It's like that kind of, the Fringe is massive, but it's also quite a like tight-knit community of people talk.
And invest,
sure.
I tend to say to people, if you're serious about it, look at it as a 3-year plan. And I know a lot of companies who in the first year, they didn't get any touring out of it, but they had okay audiences, they broke even, they got out of it a lot of things, and they came back the second year and they did get touring, and the venue had put them in a bigger space. And, it's you developing your own knowledge of the marketplace and growing and using it to your best ability.
And going back to Melissa's question, she was asking, if I don't have an audience, can I tour? And it links to a lot of things we talked about with the media, because some people assume that if I don't get reviews, I won't get an audience. In the same way here, if I don't have a huge audience, I don't tour. They're kind of all independent.
It's all about how you communicate with people. You're going to be communicating with your audience in a different way to communicating with the media and a different way to communicating with the industry. If you're sending the right messages to the right people, you're going to achieve those goals. And you just need to focus your efforts on those specific groups. If you want to get an audience, focus on that. Focus on communicating with them. Focus on getting them into your show. If you want to get the industry into your show, it's a completely different message. It's a completely different subsection, and the two don't quite correlate.
I'll also say, I don't know if I'm still in mental health and well-being mode from Tuesday, but please don't give yourself unrealistic goals or expectations.
Yeah.
Like I think Amy said it earlier, like don't expect the next 8 weeks to have to change your whole entire life. Actually, it can just be like a really nice experience and a stepping stone. And one thing I could almost guarantee is that you won't end the Fringe with the same level of experience or confidence than you started with.
No.
Like if you see it every day as like gently like a bit of a chance to like grow and learn, whereas so take the pressure. It's really easy to say sitting here, but like if you can take the pressure off and not be like I need this and this to happen or everything's gone wrong. Actually, if you can just focus on just being a part of those conversations and doing a little bit of everything, I think it genuinely helps you have a good Fringe.
And use the resources that are on offer. Come and talk to us. Book a 1-to-1 session with us during August. We're there. There's 3 or 4 of us on the team, and we're taking 1-to-1 sessions every day to give you that in-person advice rather than just constantly talking to us over email or over Skype or whatever. Do speak to us. Do come in and visit our teams.
I've got a couple more questions, but it may be worth us just shooting on to dates for your diary, and then we can have a quick roundup.
So they can be on the screen.
So I'll just pop them on screen. The brunches are on there.
The brunches are on there. I also really, really want to highlight the welcome address. So it's one of the things I didn't mention in the networking sessions because I wanted to give it its own little section. The welcome address is something that we do every year where we get a really well-known figure from the arts industry or an artist that has been on the Fringe before or just a well-known figure in the arts sector to come in and give a really great speech to kick off the Fringe. And this year we've changed it so it's more of an evening event and it's more of a celebration. It used to be an afternoon event and we thought that was really great, but there was never really a chance for networking afterwards. So we've changed it this year so that it's a bit of a drinks reception, a bit of a celebration. We're going to have a really great speaker at it, and we're really, really excited. And there's going to be, it's open to everyone. It's a huge capacity. Bring your artists, bring anyone that's in your company. Let other people know that this is happening. It's in Fringe Central. It's basically our way of celebrating the start of the Fringe, celebrating the opening of Fringe Central, and getting to meet fellow artists and other people that are coming to the Fringe that you might not have ever met because they might be in a different venue, but getting together to celebrate the opening of this really, really great centre. And it's also we'll give you a drink on us and we'll have a natter and just get to know you all. So please do come along to that. It's free as well.
So I've got the two questions. There may be more coming in, and I know Amy also wanted to add something, but they may be covered in answering these questions. So Melissa followed up with another question, saying, so if you look at it as a 3-year plan, do groups tend to make new shows every year?
Not necessarily, actually. And the group that I was thinking about when I was saying that, they came in the first year of the show, they came back last year with the same show, and this year they're coming back with 2 shows. The same one again and another new one, and one of their artists is bringing one of his own ones. That's the Modern Māori Quartet. So they've used it as a platform. A lot of artists bring the same show back. There's new audiences every year, and some, I know another company who brought one show last year, they brought a different show this year. So it's really up to what you've got in your stable. What I was going to say, Melissa, around the audience thing, I always say to people, budget for 20%. Don't have a big venue if you're not sure about your show either. And if you should reach that box office capacity, and then it just takes the financial pressure off, and you can actually enjoy it and relax and not be panicking about the numbers, the bums on seats part.
Year on year, you see the people having the best time are the people who are the least stressed. That seems like an obvious thing to say. It's like, they're doing well, of course they're not stressed, but I actually think it's the other way around. It's
because they've managed their expectations and they know what they want to achieve.
You get there's a feeling you can get off people when they arrive in week 0 who just pop in to be like, hi, I want to say hello and check that I'm up to date with everything.
Yeah.
And they might have a few little questions, but actually they're just in a really good place. And I can't say enough, like, trying to put yourself in, and it's easier said than done, obviously, but putting yourself in that frame of mind of, I'm just going to be open to what's coming and what's out there, I think is one of the most important.
I think so, definitely.
This next question is kind of following on from that, looking at that long-term 3-year plan. It's a question from Diana, who said that we may have answered this already. I don't think we have. But we mentioned that there are industry-related showcases. So how do I get on one?
They're more... I'm imagining you're talking about showcasing your own show. So for that, there are a lot of kind of panel, or what do you call them?
Mixed bills.
Mixed build shows at the venues. So
I think maybe more like showcases in the sense of, say, like the British Council showcase or something like that.
So
and that's why long-term planning is
right.
view of it.
I don't know if you can type this in, but
Give
are you from the UK? The other countries have showcases, so there's about 13 this year, and they all morph in different forms. So some of them are government supported by the national arts agencies, and some of them are just umbrella. The artists get themselves here and they just umbrella themselves in brochures. So I guess that's a bigger question in terms of what you want.
And it happens well in advance of the Fringe.
Yes, like a year.
And I think some of them are curated, some of them are by application. So for example, there's a Made in Scotland showcase that is at the Fringe every single year, and that is both kind of by application and curated. So there's a selection panel that there's a massive group of applications that come in. I think there was maybe 130 this year, and then a selection panel sits down and goes through all of the applications and decides which shows would make up a really wholesome and comprehensive showcase. So I think it's different for every single one. Some of them will commission work to be in their showcase, some of them will curate work, some of them will do it by application. It really depends on where you're from and where you're based. If you're UK, it might be British Council showcase, that's by application. Scotland is by application through Creative Scotland. It's very case by case model. Yeah.
So before we move on to look at upcoming Fringe Cast episodes, we've got a really tough question coming for you, Katie. What time are the brunches?
They are at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, so don't stay out too late on a Saturday night.
10 to 1.
Okay.
10 till 1, yes.
That's it for questions for now. We may try and catch quick ones before we go, but if not, email artist advice.
Yeah, you'll get me or Lucy.
So we're nearly there, slightly overrun, but that's okay.
Right.
Upcoming Fringe Cast. This is a very quick slide.
Yeah, there's only 2 left, and these are they're going to be different in tone, because basically we're not overly planning content. We want that to be led by you guys. So whatever you want, it's basically for all those questions that have come up with, like, oh, there's 2 weeks left. We're going to the Fringe. Like, what are you focused on now? And obviously we'll plan some content, so it's not just us babbling at you. But like, we want you to lead on those, and we're going to look a lot of the questions that come in advance and see where they're coming up. We also have on this slide the fact that Fringe Central, we open our doors on the 29th of July at 10 a.m.
That is soon.
I really want to squeeze in my top tip because I never said it, and it's just about, we talked about lanyards earlier, and it's learning like the colours because they're all slightly different. So industry, I think I'm right, is blue.
Yeah.
Media is orange. Staff, I was once told these are gold. They're
They're
yellow.
not.
They're yellow.
Canary yellow.
Yeah. And you'll learn to kind of play the lanyard game. And I'd say it's a very active choice to wear your lanyard. So if someone is wearing their lanyard, I think...
Out and about, they want to be seen, don't they? I mean, you'd take it off if you didn't want to be recognised.
And it's
Is that the situation here right now?
Yeah, I don't want to be recognised. I'm just Katie.
It's that thing of if someone's wearing the lanyard, be like, oh, does that? I think that means you're like a part of the industry.
I mean,
like,
if you bump into someone in a queue or at the bar before you see a show or something, and you notice that they're wearing a lanyard and it's a colour that you recognise, either orange or blue, or the kind of ones that you want to keep an eye out for, maybe don't go up to them and be like, oh my God, you're a person from the industry in my show. But maybe go up and ask them what they've seen. Say, oh, you're in the industry or you're in the media. What have you seen that you've really enjoyed? Rather than constantly selling your show and constantly trying to get something from somebody else, offer them a conversation. Ask them about their advice or their top tips. It's an exchange. It's not you constantly selling.
Super quick question, probably one best followed up by email. Kevin asked, does anyone know of a US specific showcase in the United States?
No. They don't. We haven't had one, I don't think, Kevin.
Canada
have got their hair en masse.
No, I haven't heard of. There is I know that there is, after the Fringe, there is a New York gathering of Fringe artists back in New York. So I know there's a big contingent that comes from New York, but no, not that we know of. Maybe start one, Kevin. Yeah. It'd be great.
Networking with other shows from your country is a really good basic start, I think.
Definitely.
Because you're going to have a similar experience.
Yeah.
Like kind of you're coming from the
very same. Easy way to do that is if you go to tickets.edfringe.com, you can filter what's on by country of origin and you can track them down that way. There's other ways you can reach out to fellow artists. So obviously I'm going to plug this because I work in the marketing team. So I will.
And he really wants you guys to comment constantly and ask questions on DMs all the time.
Subscribe. So if you haven't already, please like us on Facebook at EdFringe. Follow us on Twitter at EdFringe. But we've also got artist-focused resources. So you see on italics there, we have the Edinburgh Festival Fringe 2019 Artist Group. So this is the official group for people who've registered the show at this year's Fringe. It's not open to everyone. So if you search for that and apply, it will ask a few questions about what your show is, what your venue is, just to verify you are a registered performer. And that's another great place to connect with fellow artists. If you say, hey, let's do a Canadian artist get together, you can organise it through that group.
For sure.
You might see some familiar faces from this cast dodging around that group.
Answering questions.
Answering your questions.
And then we have artist-focused social accounts. We have at Fringe Central on both Twitter and new for this year on Instagram.
Because we're down with the kids.
And then failing that, I have posted what feels like 100 links in the live chat, but edfringe.com/take part is a great starting point. But as we've said time and time again, if you have any questions, need help, need tour pack, advice, anything, who do you email?
artistadvice@edfringe.com. Thank you.
And I guess the final thing to say is we really want to know what you thought and how you find these helpful. Hopefully you do. So Daniel's going to post in the chat about the small survey that we send out afterwards. That's because these are still... I mean, they don't feel it for now, but they are still quite a young offering from us, and they're for artists, so we want them to be as relevant and as helpful as possible. So feedback's great. Also positive feedback, that's also good.
Bonus question before we go.
Ooh,
okay, for Melissa, just wanted to clarify if we're supposed to expect a 20% audience attendance rate, which we'd more describe as like tickets at 20% of your capacity.
Of your box office, yeah. So if you've got a 100-seat venue, budget for 20 paid tickets.
Yeah, which absolutely isn't a rule, but it is very much a good rule of thumb.
And it's something that you can actively try to achieve every day. Hopefully you'll exceed that, but
it's a good benchmark
go under it.
Expectations
and
setting.
what is the genuine final question? How much alcohol/tea/coffee can middleweight theatre company bribe us with to come see their productions, brackets, they also have biscuits.
Oh God, so many biscuits. Just give me all the biscuits.
Yeah.
Are they chocolate? Because Amy brought some really bad biscuits to the office today, and we were
I
so
thought they were lovely.
disappointed.
Poor Amy has been attacked
Yeah,
for her
I know.
date pastries.
She said she was going to bring chocolate biscuits, and she brought back date biscuits. Biscuits with dates in the middle.
They were delicious.
Amy,
No.
I was very grateful.
Thank you, Ellen. Champagne. I think if you buy people with champagne rather than tea and coffee, then yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Great. The
So-
webcam's on, so
The
that
webcam
was a thing.
So we're going to wrap up with a quick video about what the Fringe is about. If you've never been, it gives you a good flavour of what to expect in a few weeks' time. But that's it for us today. Please fill out the survey if you have time. Thanks for tuning in. But I think that's just a goodbye from
Yeah,
us.
thanks for your
Thank
questions.
you.
Yeah.
Have a great Fringe.
We'll
Good luck.
see you there.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Come to Fringe Central.
So here's a flavour of what
Or
the Fringe
else.
has to offer.
Fringe stands for freedom. The freedom to take part, making a start, telling your story, whoever you are. It's for the risk takers, rule breakers, name makers, artists and audience alike, a place to discover and to be discovered. It's an international showcase, meeting place, creative space where anything goes and the world comes to find it. A global stage made in Scotland. An idea so nonsensical no one could explain it. Copy, own, predict or contain it. A complex design with human heart, ever-changing and state-of-the-art. The Fringe is groundbreaking, mischief-making, shaping conversations but never taking itself too seriously. Its birth was an act of defiance and it will never be shushed. It begins and ends with Edinburgh. It closes in taverns, venues in caverns, and waiting in line for a show. That feeling of belonging in a crowd of perfect strangers. The Fringe that calls Edinburgh home.